2 floors beneath the diamond capital of the world sits a vault that cannot be robbed. 10 layers of security, a door, a tank could not move. On a Monday morning, the bankers open it. 123 boxes have been emptied. Not one alarm ever rang. To understand how a vault built to be unbeatable was beaten without forcing a single lock, we have to go back to a quiet Italian thief who spent 3 years pretending to be something he was not. This is Antwerp, Belgium. 80% of the world's rough diamonds pass through a few guarded streets here. At its heart stands the Diamond Centre, and beneath it, the vault where the merchants lock away their fortunes. The vault is a fortress folded into the earth, a steel door weighing 3 tons, a lock with 100 million possible combinations, and that is only the beginning of what stands between a thief and the diamonds. Behind the door wait 10 separate defenses, infrared sensors that feel body heat, a motion detector, a seismic sensor that hears digging, a magnetic field on the door itself, a light sensor, and a private police force, a stone's throw away. The men who built it called it the most secure vault in the world. For decades, they were right. To rob it, you would not need a drill or dynamite. You would need to understand it better than the people who guarded it. Enter Leonardo Notarbartolo, a polished Italian with an easy smile and a tailored suit. To the Diamond District, he was just another merchant. In truth, he had been stealing jewels since he was a boy. He did not break into the Diamond Centre. He rented an office inside it. For 3 years he came and went, a tenant with a key, a man with a safe deposit box of his own, and quietly he watched everything. He learned the rhythm of the guards, the blind spots of the cameras. He hid a tiny camera inside a fire extinguisher box and filmed the vault's lock again and again until he knew its combination by heart. He was not working alone. Behind him stood a crew of specialists the police would later call the School of Turin. A lockman, an electronics man, a man who could grow still as stone and wait, each chosen for one talent. For months they rehearsed. They built a copy of the vault room in a warehouse far away and practiced defeating each sensor one by one until the impossible became a routine they could perform in the dark. The first enemy was heat. The infrared sensor could feel the warmth of a human body across the room and sound the alarm. A drill could not beat it, but a can of ordinary hairspray could. Sprayed onto the sensor, the film of hairspray sealed its eye for hours, blinding it to the heat of the men who would soon stand right in front of it. The most advanced sensor in the room, undone by a drugstore can. The magnetic field on the vault door was meant to scream the instant the door was opened, so they did not break the field. They bridged it, holding the magnet's 2 halves together with a simple homemade brace. As the door swung wide, the light sensor would trip if the room ever brightened. They covered it with black tape. The motion detector they shrouded. One by one, the vault's sensors were quietly switched off from the inside on a weekend in February 2003 while Antwerp slept. The crew went down into the vault. They had the combination. They had silenced the sensors, and in front of them stood 160 locked boxes. They did not have keys to the boxes. They did not need them. With a handmade tool, they pried each little door, and the wealth of the Diamond District spilled into their bags. Diamonds, gold, bundles of cash. They worked through the night, methodical, unhurried. 123 of the 160 boxes emptied. By the time the city woke, the men were gone, and so were the diamonds. Over $100 million worth. It was, and remains, the largest diamond heist in history. No alarm had sounded, no lock had been forced. The most secure vault in the world had been emptied as if by ghosts. The thieves should have vanished forever. But here is where the perfect crime begins to unravel, because a heist is not over when you have the diamonds. It is over when no one can ever connect you to them, and one of the men had been careless. The plan had been simple: drive into the countryside, burn every trace, the bags, the tools, the gloves, the rubbish from the long nights of waiting, leave nothing for the police to ever find. But one of them grew lazy. Instead of burning the rubbish, he tossed the bags into the brush along a quiet road and drove away, believing the forest would swallow his secrets. It would not. A man who lived nearby was sick of strangers dumping trash by his land. Annoyed, he gathered the bags to report them, and he called the police about a littering complaint. An ordinary citizen, furious about garbage. The police almost did not care. Littering is not a crime that empties an evidence room, but the timing caught one detective's eye. A vault robbed in Antwerp. Strange rubbish dumped in the woods nearby. He decided to look. Inside the bags was the wreckage of the heist. Diamond-stained envelopes, a length of the very tape used on the censors, and, almost laughably, a half-eaten sandwich abandoned by a hungry thief. That sandwich was the mistake that would end everything, because a half-eaten meal carries the one thing no thief can spray over or tape shut. It carries his DNA. The receipts in the bags led to a shop. The shop led to a name. And the name led the police straight back to the polished Italian merchant who had rented an office inside the Diamond Centre. Leonardo Notarbartolo. They arrested him. And one by one, the school of Turin began to fall. The men who had defeated 10 layers of security had been undone by litter, a grudge, and a sandwich. The perfect crime had a very imperfect ending. Notarbartolo was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The newspapers called it the heist of the century, and marveled at the cleverness of the men who had pulled it off, and the smallness of the slip that caught them. But the story does not end with a man in a cell, because there is a second mystery, and it is the one that still keeps detectives awake. Of the $100 million in diamonds, almost none was ever found. The gems had vanished as completely as they were stolen. No flood of cheap diamonds appeared on the market. No buried hoard was ever dug up. More than $100 million in stones simply evaporated. From his cell, Notarbartolo offered an answer that turned the whole story on its head. He claimed the heist was never really his idea. He claimed a diamond merchant had hired him, not to steal, but to stage. According to him, the boxes were already half empty. The true plan was insurance fraud. The merchants would claim fortunes they had quietly removed in advance, and the famous heist would simply be the cover story. Was it true? Or was it the last clever lie of a man who had built his life on deception? No one has ever proven it. The merchants denied everything, and the diamonds stayed gone. Notarbartolo served his years and walked free. He never led anyone to a hidden fortune. He never confessed to where the stones had gone. He simply smiled the way he always had and kept his secret. It would be easy to make him a folk hero, the gentleman thief who beat the unbeatable vault. But remember who paid? The merchants who lost the savings of a lifetime. The families whose security vanished in a single night. And remember the strange lesson buried in it all. The vault had 10 layers of brilliant, expensive defense. Every one of them was beaten by patience, by cheap household tricks, and by a man simply allowed to walk in the front door. The most advanced sensors in the world meant nothing, because the thieves understood something the engineers forgot. The weakest part of any fortress is rarely the lock. It is the people who trust too easily. To this day, the Antwerp vault job is studied by security experts as the heist that should have been impossible. And it is told as a warning. You cannot armor a door against trust. You cannot tape shut a careless hand. Somewhere perhaps the diamonds still exist, cut and recut, scattered into rings and necklaces, passed quietly between hands that will never know where they came from, beautiful and stolen and impossible to trace. And somewhere an old man may still be smiling, holding the answer to the greatest jewel mystery of our age, the way he once held a stolen diamond up to the light, knowing exactly what it was worth and saying nothing. Remember the hairspray and the tape and the half-eaten sandwich. Remember that the unbeatable vault was beaten by a quiet man with a key and 3 years of patience. The most dangerous thief is rarely the one who breaks the door. It is the one you let inside, the one with the easy smile and the rented office, who studies you while you guard the door. By the time the vault hangs open and the boxes are empty, he is already long gone. 10 layers of security, 3 tons of steel, $100 million in diamonds, all of it undone by patience, by household tricks, and by the one law no fortress can repeal. Someone, somewhere, always grows careless. The diamonds of Antwerp are still out there, glittering somewhere in the world, keeping their secret. And every secure door ever built since has carried hidden in its design the quiet ghost of the vault that could not be robbed until it was. I'm Wisp. If this story kept you guessing, stay a while, subscribe, and I'll keep telling the ones where the cleverest plan meets the smallest mistake. Light a small flame against the dark with me. I'll see you in the next story.
Before you go, if you made it all the way here, you're my kind of person. So do 3 small things for me. Subscribe so the next story finds you. Leave a like if this one earned it. And in the comments, tell me what Wisp should dig up next. A betrayal, a vanishing, a perfect crime that almost worked. I read every single one. Until then, stay curious and stay in the dark.